Good morning. Yesterday, we focused on the exposition and inciting incident in our rough draft organizers. Today, we're focusing on the rising action or development. Sometimes it's called one, or sometimes it's called the other. So, the rising action is the problems that develop and build in the story. So, from the inciting incident where the conflict is introduced, problems and scenes happen and build up and up and up, and the problem piles up and piles up until we get to a turning point in the story. So we're focusing on how the scenes go and how the problems increase as the character moves through the story. So as we look at our graphic organizer, yesterday we had our exposition, which was our introduction, and then the inciting incident. Today we're on page 2. Page 2 has different word bubbles here, and each word bubble is a scene in your rising action. It's where you're going to type your story. So scene 1 starts at the bottom, then we have scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, scene 5, and scene 6. And the whole reason why it piles up like this and is numbered is to help you keep track of your events. So each bubble here is going to be a scene that you describe in the story. To give you an example, here's my plotline page 2. As you can see, I've got it filled out with dialogue and with narration. And it goes chronologically from start to finish. So scene 1, James is annoyed by Charlie's good nature. I put that in there to help me kind of figure out what I wanted in that scene first. I did that with all of my bubbles. So scene 2, sometimes James exploits Charlie. Scene 3, sometimes he stands up for him. In scene 4, I put in bold that he sees Charlie has a lot of visitors, but not family. Scene 5, he wonders why Charlie tosses and turns at night. And scene 6, James wants to know more about Charlie. And that's going to bring me up to my turning point, my climax, where James kind of learns who Charlie once was. To give you an example, though, after I've kind of given my general idea of how the story goes, I'm now going to write the scene. This is what's going to take most of the period today, because each scene has to go along with each other. So this is the first scene. James is annoyed by Charlie's good nature. "Why are you so nice to everyone?" James asked. The orderly was rude to everybody, but Charlie always smiled and said thank you to him. "Because he works to take care of us and keeps this place clean," Charlie replied. "I used to do that too." What an idiot, James thought. So this is James's first impression of Charlie. Charlie is really nice to this rude worker that isn't nice to anybody. And James thinks Charlie is a total idiot for being nice to this guy because this guy isn't nice back. In scene 2, sometimes James exploits Charlie. Then I write this scene where James steals money from Charlie. The orderlies made a big show of pulling everything out of James's drawers, turning over his bed, checking under his chair and desk, and turning his nightstand drawers out onto the floor. Nothing. "Where are you hiding the money?" the nurse said in a stern, accusing voice. "I swear I didn't take the money." James's voice was convincing. "We know Charlie had $5 for today's outing to the ice cream shop. We gave it to him yesterday, and he put it on his nightstand. I saw him do it," the nurse said. "Just because you lost the privilege for today's outing doesn't mean you can take it out on poor Charlie." "I swear I didn't take it," James repeated. The nurse and orderlies left in an angry huff. Charlie followed sheepishly, apologizing for losing his $5. It was his own fault, James thought. You don't leave out money in a place that's not your home. After the bus left the parking lot, James slid over a ceiling tile and pulled out a cigarette from the 2 packs he had bought off another patient with the $5. So this is a scene where James did steal the $5, but he was able to successfully hide it from everybody. So while everyone else got to go out for ice cream, James had already lost that privilege anyway. So when he saw that money laying there, he stole it, got himself his own version of a treat, and lied to everyone about it. But sometimes James is going to stand up for Charlie. Like as they get to know each other, James is going to make sure that Charlie doesn't get taken advantage of. So here, later on in the story, someone is going to ask for Charlie's extra pudding and lie to him, and James is going to call him out on it. So as this story goes, James is going to warm up to Charlie. We have a scene where James sees that Charlie gets a lot of visitors, but not family. A scene where James sees that Charlie tosses and turns at night like he's having nightmares or is in pain. And then finally, James is going to be thinking about Charlie and trying to figure out, like, what's this guy all about? And that's my rising action. That's how they're going to get to know each other. Now, this is helping me keep all of my ideas in sequence because it makes sense. First, James's first impression is that he is annoyed. Then he decides to take advantage of him. Then, as he gets to know him, he starts to stand up for him. Then he's noticing that a lot of people like him. And then he also is noticing that Charlie is experiencing pain or nightmares. So he starts to really contemplate and wonder about this guy. My rising action takes place over the course of a month in the story. And that's why I put things in here too, talking about how it was a month. In this scene, I write that, James peered down the hall to see a short man in a brown suit and a younger woman, pretty, possibly his daughter. In the month they had been roommates, it was common for people to visit Charlie. So that's an important line to put in there to show that from this scene down here in scene 1 to scene 4, 4 weeks go by. And once I put this in a Google Doc, the transitions will start to become more smooth. But again, this is organizing our story and getting down our basic rough draft. Good luck and happy writing.